Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CPA Lady Podcast. My name is Marjorie McPike. I am a CPA in Southern California, currently working in public accounting at a regional CPA firm. And I have with me today Jacqueline Anderson, a CPA from Georgia. Jacqueline, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone out there. As Marjorie said, my name is Jacqueline Anderson. However, everybody calls me Jackie. So, and I am a certified public accountant and I work in government and I am an entrepreneur as well. So, thank
Awesome.
you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. It's such a privilege and an honor to be able to sit down and talk to you about your CPA journey, not your CPA journey so much, but um, your experience in accounting and how that can help other entrepreneurs. That's a big part of what I'm about is helping to educate entrepreneurs on taxes, accounting, generational wealth, and of course their career.
Gotcha.
So, give me a little bit about your background. How did you get into accounting? Where your education? How'd you get to where you are now?
Well, I will say it was not traditional. That seems to be the running theme in the Black community. But I will say I fell into accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I was a finance major, and I will be honest and transparent during this conversation and say when I graduated high school, I didn't have any interest in going to college. I didn't
Okay.
even know that that was the career path or
Mm-hmm.
or the way to a career. I am from Northeast Texas, and there was pretty much little guidance on what to do after high school. Basically, get a job and survive and live life,
Right.
live an actual career.
Mm-hmm.
However, I did decide to go to college, junior college. So my process or path has been in phases, to tell you the truth. I started out since I didn't have any interest or necessarily a goal to go to college. I
Mm-hmm.
started with an associate degree. So I said, okay, I'll go to my local or nearby community college, which was a junior college. So I started out on a 2-year program. Again, didn't necessarily have any interest or didn't know where I was headed, but I completed a 2-year program and have my Associate of Arts degree in business.
Okay.
And where I'm from, it's a small area, but there are little pockets of 2-year or community colleges that fed into the nearby University of Texas at Tyler. Not the
Mm-hmm.
main one in Austin, but one of their branches in our area. So all their 2-year programs fed into their programs, their 4-year programs, if you decided to. All your courses rolled into a 4-year degree.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, the University of Texas at Tyler was considered an upper level college anyway. You went there as a junior or senior. Now, here in 2020, it is a full fledged 4-year university. But
Okay.
back then, like I said, the community colleges and junior colleges fed into their upper level program. So that being said, I finished and I am a goal oriented checklist person. So I was like, okay, I got my 2-year degree. But again, being from a small town, opportunities were limited. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like if I sacrificed going to college, I didn't go to college to get a degree to work in a factory because those are pretty much my only options.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, okay, I'll roll after getting into college and seeing what my options were regarding turning it into a 4-year degree. I was like, oh, okay. I'll go over here pretty much around the corner
Mm-hmm.
to the university because all the courses were accepted. Just rolled right into that 4-year program. So I had a 2-year degree, Associate of Arts in Business, and decided at that time, I think if you majored in business administration, your bachelor's degree, your only options back then were like management, marketing, finance, accounting. And I do remember this vividly because the internet and e-commerce was just coming online, so to speak, and people were just now becoming familiar with this. So e-commerce was a big major. It's like, ooh, what is this about? Buying and selling online. But I just remember that. Anyway, back when I was at junior college, I had to take of course, an accounting class in the business program. And I remember that lady telling us, the instructor said, the debits and credits are completely opposite of what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Credit card or debit card. I don't even know if we used them back then, but if she was like complete opposite. And I just could not wrap my brain around it. So I took that one class that it was required, and I decided at that point finance would be my major. I am not doing accounting. Of course, I didn't want to do management or marketing, but once it was explained to me, basically the accountants or like the number crunchers, bean
Right.
counters,
Being
but
counted.
as a finance major, accounts create the reports, but they'll generate the reports and you can analyze them.
Mm-hmm.
That was my mindset, or work on in the stock market in trading. So I figured, okay, we'll let the bean counters and number crunchers create their financial statements, income statement, balance sheets, and then you analyze them. So that's how I ended up going the finance route. And I feel like, okay, accounting just seemed to be so hard. And I left it behind. Little did I know I would circle back to it. That's why I say my journey or my experience was not traditional, because I did not have any interest in being an accountant. I just thought it was a lot of effort. It was really hard. And I did not want to challenge myself, to be quite honest. School came pretty easy. Were you about to say something?
I was just going to ask, so what stuck out in accounting that drew you in?
And when I finally, okay, to circle back to it,
Mm-hmm.
the earning potential. And so I ended up going on through school, got my bachelor's degree. And at that time I had my daughter. So at that point, I felt like I needed to have a job, a career, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
something with a steady paycheck and reliable and pretty predictable paycheck at that. I knew what it would be. So I was looking for a salary job position. But along the way, I work in government. That's what my career has been. My career path has been in government. Alongside, we'll get into what I do on the side or in addition to that, supplemental income. I'm about that. Right. But I started working in government, and I realized you may do some of the same tasks and duties, responsibilities day in and day out, but being in government, if you have certain credentials, that will make you eligible for certain promotions or pay grades.
Okay.
And I found out, having my master's degree and then later on being a CPA, whether I use that skill set or not, it just set me up for different promotions.
That's good thinking.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, I am a checklist type of person. Or you tell me what it takes to do something, oh, I'm on it then. I'm goal oriented. Okay, I need to do this, and this. I'm there.
Right.
However, it was not as easy as I thought it would be, because I was not exposed to accounting career, or didn't even know what a CPA was, or knew a CPA at the time. When I got started, I did not know. And then, of course, where I worked at, there was a lady in the finance director. She was a CPA, but that wasn't brought to my attention until I got into school and got on that track.
Okay. So do you find that that what you do, so what do? You work in government, and can you explain a little bit about what type of accounting you do, what you do in your day job?
When I was on the CPA track, I was in the finance department of our government agency. So at that time, I was doing like some accounts payable and was considered a purchasing agent. Okay. At the time. So that's how I got my experience in working under a CPA. So that's how my actual experience qualified for the CPA license. But over the years, it's been primarily grant management, grant administration, submitting reimbursements. We're like a pass-through agency. So we work with vendors and providers, and you just process invoices, but at a higher degree or scale than just your typical AP, but it's similar to that because you have a lot of rules and regulations and oversight.
Right, for grants, because grants are primarily for nonprofit organizations, right?
Right.
Getting money from the government to fund what it is that they're doing.
Right, and we are under, strict guidelines on trying to administer those grants. So that's what I do. But back to when I was in the accounting world, I was more of a purchasing agent, and had to and had some oversight with internal controls.
Internal controls meaning making sure that people are handling the transactions the way they're supposed to.
Right, and with the authorization, you had proper authorization before the transaction took place, and then receiving it on the back end to make sure everyone was in their limits regarding what they could sign off on and who signed off. So then with it being government, a lot of people are off sometimes and and choosing who they will delegate that responsibility to. So I was pretty much monitoring that, making sure the proper signatures were in place on paper and on our internal systems, accounts payable systems, to make sure we had that. So when we were audited or monitored, in the governmental world, we use monitoring, not necessarily auditing. We met those standards and requirements. If not, of course, your funding can be stripped.
Okay, that's good information. A lot of people probably don't know that because we see the government as foreign. It's just something that's over there and they do their own thing. So that's good information. People should know that.
Right. A lot of social services, even though you might go to a regular company, they probably eligible for a lot of grants and a lot of funding to provide that service to you and your community.
And so you guys administer that. Okay. So,
right.
So that's your 9 to 5. So let's talk about your entrepreneurship. Well, your supplemental income.
Right. Passive. And with that, make passive income is the goal. Because I'm already working 9 to 5. I don't need to go work 5 to 11 or midnight. But I understand too, you have to put some blood, sweat, and tears if you want to leave that 9 to 5.
Right.
But the ultimate goal is passive income, whether on the stock market and real estate. So, right, that's primarily where I'm at, although I am dabbling in the stock market world, which we can talk about during, or maybe I'll circle back to that real estate, because right now in the forefront of what I'm doing. Earlier this year when COVID hit and a lot of us were sent home and trying to figure out what to do with all this extra time, in addition to wrapping our brains around a pandemic. What is a pandemic? Because most of us, this is our first time living through one and experiencing it. I felt like I need to take advantage of this time here, because my company instituted that we would work from home, like 100% telework protocol until further notice. So I felt like, okay, I can do my job in addition, but then I don't have to commute. So I've saved an hour in the morning and in the afternoon. So that's 2 hours in the day I've gotten back at a minimum. Right. What am I going to do with that? So friends of mine, say that again.
What have you done with that? How have you transitioned or changed the use of that time?
So early on, so friends of ours, we're all about quit talking about it, let's be about it. So we got together. We knew we had 2 extra hours. If nothing else, people I talk to, because most of you commute around about an hour. There was no getting around it. So what are you doing with your time? Because this is about holding each other accountable. We started an investment club. So 12 of us got together. We got to put our heads together and put our monies together, pulled it together. So that's one thing we can say we started out of this pandemic. We've talked about it for years. So we started an investment club, again, back to passive income using the stock market. In addition to building wealth, you're talking about generational wealth. A lot of us think going to work or having a job, and I hate to say it, I don't think that's the easiest or the best way to generational wealth. But it keeps the bills paid. But once you stop working, the income stops coming in. You might be living a high life, but you got to keep working for it to continue. So you want to create multiple streams of income, or that passive income where it's working. Nowadays, the kids or young people call it sleeping money.
Right.
While you sleeping, it's making money, right? So we started that. Well, so that's one thing. And also, I was telling you about real estate. So I've been building a real estate portfolio since the market crash, the recession of 2008. And being a finance major, I learned that in college, if nothing else. When everybody else is selling, it's time to start buying. That's one thing I do remember being a finance major. That guy was talking about it. When everybody else is pulling out or trying to hold their cash, you need to be in a position to take advantage of that. Not to say, well, I will say that's what capitalism is all about. Being here in America, whether you accept it or recognize it or not. But that's how you get ahead in the capitalist society. So I've always been a saver. So in 2008, when the real estate market was crashing, I started buying properties. So I got into investment property management. My family, I pulled them in. I don't have a property management company. We do it ourselves. We do the repairs. Of course, to a certain degree, when it's above our heads or we just don't have the time, I call what we say, it's time to call a professional. Call a professional who one has the tools or the expertise to get it done much faster than we can.
Right.
So that's where I started. So that's where the supplemental income comes from. I'm working in the stock market now and real estate.
Okay. Okay. So with real estate, because it's education, you know. So what do you recommend, or what have you found with your accounting and your finance degree, and then dealing with real estate? What do you think that people that are investing in real estate should take into consideration, or um, or how should they handle their finances? Something that would be beneficial to someone that's investing in real estate.
Right. Well, you don't necessarily have to have a separate business for it, as you know, but I did create home-based business from that. So back to using my accounting degree and expertise that I've learned. So you should set aside so you're not commingling your funds. So keep your rental income separate. And if you are going to manage the properties, yes, you should create a separate business for it so you can keep your income and expenses separated. And then when it comes tax time, so you can shelter most of that income because you got the rents coming in, you're going to pay taxes on it if you don't have any expenses to offset that. And if you're doing a lot of that work yourself, your vehicle, gas, all the things you're spending out, you can write off to offset a lot of the income that is coming in each month. So that's how I've used my accounting degree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Property management company, and then your rental pays the property management company for services, or do you just do it all
under my one company? Under the one company, under many things that we do, yes. And I pray in the property management is my family, but I do pay a family member a salary to go out to handle some of the repairs.
That's generational wealth right there. That's a bar.
Right. Instead of if I was going to be lending out money or helping that person out, okay, here's your salary that will be included in part of my payroll expense.
Right.
Running that business.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, so I would say, yes, go ahead and set it up separately. Keep your personal expenses, although your personal money will fund that venture or the real estate, but keep it separate so you can take advantage of some of the tax deductions and things, credits that you can do to offset or lower your taxable income at the end of the year, because that's how you build generational wealth. That's what we learned being accountants. That's why people come to us with their businesses, although they're profitable, they want to lower their taxable income as much as possible. So in a sense, it looks like you're not quite profitable, but we know it's a tax game.
It's a tax game.
And then too, I learned too, it's not tax evasion, it's tax avoidance. And tax avoidance is very legal. And sometimes you have to learn, and about being about information and educational, you have to find either the people who are knowledgeable, or you have to dig and find the information for yourself. So you can set up the right entity and take advantage of know the rules, and then take advantage of some of those, the tax code, so you can build generational wealth. Because the idea is to get it, obtain it, then keep it so you can live off of it, and then pass it along. So I'm all about obtain it, maintain it, and then retain it, keep it in the family.
I love that. I got that from your website. So let's talk about that. So you have a business. It's Wealth Crate. So tell us a little about Wealth Crate. And I love what you say about obtain, maintain, and retain wealth. So
so and it falls under that one company. So back to accounting, I don't have 20 different companies. They all fall under JLA professionals. So this one, Wealth Crate, is back to the accounting side and building generational wealth. So yeah, obtaining it, working it day in and day out. You have the income coming in, you're living life. But again, trying to supplement that, and hopefully with passive income, so you're not working yourself to death and not being able to enjoy it. So obtaining it, then back to maintaining it, get it to a place where it works for itself, back to the real estate or the stock market. And then, or where my goal is to live off the interest. Our goal and mission in our investment club is to be able to live off the interest down the road. We don't know how long it would take us to get there, but that's our mission. So then you maintain it. And then towards the end of life, or when things And then also to lower the taxes, being able to pass it along down the road once
Right.
it's time to start estate planning. So retaining it versus this government getting a big chunk of it, or you just having to outright sell it because of some other situation you may find yourself in, or services you may need once you get older. Because a lot of times as you age, you can't have any assets if you want any services or assistance. If they look back, I think the look back period for some services are 7 years, 10 years. So you have to start planning, thinking ahead, and finding people, unfortunately, who are not always family, to transfer these assets to, or setting up a trust if you're on that level. But my I guess target market and audience is to help us just build, just get started on that path. And that's where ultimately where I want to see our community grow to, where we have trust funds and inheritance to pass along. Because I will be honest, right now, no, I don't want to say no one, but I don't think on an ordinary basis I hear anybody talking about their inheritance.
And you don't, and it's because we are not exposed to that information. And so that's something that's a goal of my podcast, is to expose people to realizing that, hey, there are companies out there are families out there that have trust fund, and their kids don't have to work, or their kids get money, or their grandkids get a trust fund. And there's a way that you can set it up so that it goes, it passes on. Your wealth passes on. And that's the important thing, is knowing how to get it from you to the next person. And that's another reason why I wanted to start the podcast, is because so many people are out there making money. You're earning a lot of money. The pandemic has brought on opportunities for a lot of people to earn a lot of money. But let's make sure that you're doing with that money what you intend to do. So if it's to pass on to your son, let's get you the education so that you can pass it on to your son.
Right. And then too, with that, and setting up back to Wealth Crate in the different businesses, I have it set up so that money that I generate, the supplemental income, I keep it separate, because I do have a steady, predictable income through my job, which is okay. And I want to emphasize this. A lot of times when you are a licensed professional in any career, whether it's cosmetology, engineer, or contractor, sometimes the world will tell us it's time to step out on your own, be an entrepreneur, call your own shots. But you still have to be accountable to someone, your customers.
Right.
And people seem to forget that, or don't tell people about that. But my point is, it's okay to go to a job. Use it to your advantage. Be strategic about it. And I worked on my job almost 20 years.
Wow.
And so I think it's given me an opportunity to be strategic about the next phase of my life or career, being a CPA, where I can decide to step out on my own at some point. But early on, it was because I knew I had a daughter and people depending on me, I stayed in this job. But now that I've been in it so long, I've set up an actual pension, because a lot of jobs, corporate America, don't even have pensions. It's a 401k. So I have a retirement in addition with the 403b, with it being government. I also have a pension that'll be waiting on me down the road. So my point is to say, it's okay to work for folks, to be an employee for a while, to have a W-2. It's okay until it's time for you to step out and be a consultant and transition to being for a 1099. I just want to let people know it's okay. I've been doing it, and it has worked out. And then too, it's also a safety net, because a lot of times in the Black community, we don't have anybody that we can call on if things just don't work out with that entrepreneur venture. You still have a mortgage or a car note. So if you can stay with that steady job and income, I would say stick with it as long as you can, and build up your safety net. Have some savings before you step out on your own, if that's what you want to do. But me stepping out on my own has come somewhat with having a CPA license, because people seek me out. They know I have CPA and some level of expertise. So I was like, oh, okay. I can do it. I was like, so I may as well monetize these 3 letters. Why did I get them? Of course, it's been rewarding on my job. But again, it's opened so many doors that I wasn't even aware of. Right. Didn't even think about.
Yeah, that's
early on.
It opens doors, gives you opportunities. Yes.
Right.
Very cool. Okay. Small business accounting, because I want to make sure we cover that one. You said that you help small businesses to set up their bookkeeping
Right.
systems, and it's primarily QuickBooks. Everybody uses QuickBooks. Are there
Right.
other software programs, accounting programs that you're aware of that would be good for people to use?
In my experience, QuickBooks is user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the most user friendly ones I've come across. So I would recommend that one because you don't necessarily need an expert to learn how to or to use it. And I understand why a lot of entrepreneurs, business people use it because it is so easy to use, compatible with other software and with your bank accounts where you have the feeds and it pulls in information, can code things easily. So I get it.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the same time, I think some business owners don't understand the value of having actual accountant or bookkeeper. They feel like because it is user friendly, I can figure it out as I go. But back to what I do, I usually come in and will set it up
Okay.
because do the chart of accounts. They feel like, okay, well, and again, this is by word of mouth. I would tell you again because people know, oh, Jack is a CPA. She can do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And in reasonable cost. It's like,
Right.
okay, but I just, again, back to, I don't think they value that expertise or having it as a monthly expense. They feel like, okay, I get you up and running, or I get them up and running. They'll take it from there, which is okay. And then they call me back 6 months later asking me to come clean it up,
Right.
which I don't complain. But again, because that's income. I charge you. Okay, either you charge me on the front end, either I charge you on the front end, or I'm gonna charge you on the back end. It's your choice. But I think QuickBooks gives people a false sense of security, of like they know what they're doing, and sometimes I feel like they're missing out on some tax advantages
Right.
by
Right.
doing that. But again, back to what I do, it's pretty much word of mouth, and I just do this primary setup, and I train you, and I explain to them you can do this if you devote the time to it and
Mm-hmm.
show them what to do. So I don't know if that's either a good or bad thing, where I train them so well and they feel comfortable with it, and then they don't need me, or what.
It can still circle back because I think even if you are preparing, if you're importing the transactions and classifying them, as an entrepreneur or small business owner, it's good to have, your accountant or CPA take a look at it to make sure that what you're classifying is correct, and also to see if maybe there's something that you're doing, um, that would be more beneficial to you. You know, the classifications is big. You don't want to classify an asset as an expense because then you're going to have a false, P&L.
Mm.
Also, like if you're spending too much on a certain expense or if you're payroll, and then when it comes down to tax planning time, that's crucial, to really look at your financials.
You're right. And I will say some of the difficulty or trying the education piece of it is trying to get people to understand you can use this to your advantage, because when it's time to go to expand your business or you want to loan, you need some official paperwork, some documentation to back up your numbers.
Right.
And I found that some people just, I think this goes back to guidance, direction, or lack thereof in the Black community. You just someone just stepping out there with no experience or anyone to give you any insight on how this works. But I know too, sometimes we feel like, well, that's more tax you have to pay. But if you understand the rules and the guidelines, that's, you can reduce your taxable income, but yet you can use this to go to a bank and obtain a loan, more funding to grow your business in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But back to what you're doing and educating people so they understand it, the value of having an accountant.
Right. And that's what it is. It's the value. It is, and it's Black people because we're not exposed to it, so we're not aware. And a lot of people are just starting a business, and so we know how to make money. We know how to get out there and hustle, or we have good work ethic. But it's the other side of it that we need to let people know, that you still need to take care of that, and then not to do it blindly, because you don't want to wake up, and when you file your tax return, that's not the time to be knowing what your tax what's supposed to look like. You should be knowing, November,
Right.
December, you should be planning now, looking at how much you've made and what you can expect, and see if there are changes that you can make.
Early on. Right. Exactly.
And that's even with generational wealth too. I like what you said about hiring your family. That one's big. Yes.
Right.
You can hire your family, so then you're empowering them, and you're getting work done, and you're creating a business expense for yourself as well. So
Right. And then, like you say, it's within generational wealth, and everybody has some skin in the game,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they'll be
especially.
doing some work for you if they're getting paid, right?
Right. And then too, a lot of times in the Black community, I found you have one or two people that everybody relies on. That person has made it, so to speak, or has some extra income and seems to be able to help out other people. But again, let's put our heads together or come together where we can benefit as a family in years to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Very
that's been my mindset. Okay, this is a family affair. That's what I call it. It's a family affair over here. We're all contributed to this empire.
That's awesome. Okay, so your advisory services to entrepreneurs, is that primarily in the setting up of QuickBooks, or do you offer other advisory services? Or what kind of advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, usually set up one, but initially probably the entity. You're sole proprietor? Do you really need an LLC at this point? So we go through that process and then set up QuickBooks. I do try to encourage them out the gate, set it up. You may not necessarily be generating that much revenue or income, but the goal is to be at that point. So let's set everything up correctly on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
That's the advisory service and advice for some, because again, this is word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come to me with their ideas or their intention of this is what they plan to do. So in that conversation and discussion, that's what we talk about. And if it turns into a consulting gig, great. If not, that's okay too. Because I just wish I had the information when I was getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand money is tight. Usually in the Black community again, which I just hope we change that at some point. because I do feel like we as people across the board, we make time for what we want to, and we have the money or funds to buy what we want. So again, it's prioritizing what is important. And that's usually thinking more long term than short term. But yeah, that's where we start. And if I can pretty much, I don't know if it's a psychological thing or if we're just going back to something spiritual. It's pretty much about changing the mindset. That's how I go into it, not necessarily trying to get a paycheck out of it or pay me. Because sometimes I've heard people say, or just watching podcasts and just different shows, people say, you should people should pay you for your expertise. So they'll value it more. But at the same time, I don't know if that's just within me. I just feel like I'm here. I got it. So I will give it to you. If and when it comes back, I'm okay with that. And I don't necessarily need everything to turn into a paycheck right off the bat. Right. That's not how I go into it or why I go into it. Why I do what I do at this point. And I want to see everybody win. I want to see you win. I'm winning. But again, too, I will say, because I maintain my regular job, I don't necessarily have to depend on that either. Mm-hmm. And that's helped me. That's another reason I didn't necessarily just step out full force, right off the bat. I was like, okay. But I will say, on the flip side, sometimes you get complacent and comfortable.
Yes. Very easy to get complacent and comfortable with a steady paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I see there's too much work out here to do. Mm-hmm. And then back to people, word of mouth, sending people my way, holding me accountable for those credentials. So I was like, oh my goodness. They expect me to have some answers for them. So that keeps me on my toes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It keeps me motivated to help and willing to offer some advice and guide people through this process. But my experience has been, I do the setup on the front end and then they go off on their own.
Okay. And that works both ways. I think it's important that they at least come to you for the setup, at least to get started, because it's better to kind of start on the right track.
Right.
Yeah.
And I give them all the tools and the resources they need. I show them how easy it is to do it, but just keep everything separate. Mm-hmm. Whether they do that or not, that's something different.
Your business and your personal separate. Run your business like a business.
Yeah. Right. I've heard people say a business or business. Is it what you got, a business?
Something real, huh?
Right. So let's set this up so you're a legit business where you can go into a bank and obtain a loan. if that's what you need or direction you're trying to take your business to.
And that's the direction that we should all be trying to take our business to.
But that's a mindset. Back to that side hustle or doing something on the side, that shift in the way we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I find, go ahead.
The goal is to, I would think that for an entrepreneur, the goal would be to eventually, like you said, have more passive income or more investments or something, or your business creating enough income so that you don't have to do both, so that you have more freedom, you have more, more time. You don't want to always be working, like you said, 9 to 5 and 5 to 11.
And then too, I find even if you are an entrepreneur, how are you growing your business or training someone in your family or the next generation? Because the income will stop as soon as you get sick or stop. So what happens to the family business? Mm-hmm. And what's the succession plan?
Mm-hmm. That's big.
I found that, or we have those discussions, but I hope that that's where my business evolves into that estate planning and succession planning, because we have a lot of skill sets, a lot of things that we're doing, but how are you grooming the next generation? What are you doing? Have you thought that far ahead? And again, back to usually in the Black community, we're just trying to live day to day, check to check, make bills this month, let alone we're talking about thinking 10 years, 20 years down the road. How does this business still exist when you're ready either to take a back seat or when you move on and this part of life is over? What happened to all your hard work? What will be left?
Right.
Or does it just cease, come to an end? And a lot of times in the Black community, that's it. When that person, health issues, something arises, you stop the business, you go out of business, so to speak.
That's a good point. Succession planning, even like life insurance, because say for instance you have someone that's an entrepreneur and they're the main person and they have a good sized business and something happens to them, then you have someone else that's sitting there depending on them. You need to have things in place, whether it's life insurance, succession plans. I'm big on trust.
Okay.
Things set up in a trust so that the other person is still taken care of.
Right, and that goes back to information and education. Because a lot of times you talk about life insurance, people think the extent of that is burial insurance, or something to cover the final expenses, enough to, like they say, put somebody in the ground. And it was like, wait a minute. But again, that's a whole nother conversation or layer to this when you're talking about being an entrepreneur.
Right. Because it goes beyond burial insurance. Yeah.
Right. So I find there's a lot of work to be done. So in the accounting field of being a CPA, the lanes are wide open. There's so many areas you can specialize in or be an expert, because it's lacking that information, or putting that information out there and making it available. And so people that look like us are out there for others to connect with and relate to, because sometimes I find that can deter us or be a hindrance in trying to make that connection. But if you have somebody that looks like you or can speak from personal experience, they might be more likely to take it to heart and take action the next step.
Right. I agree.
So I would say part of that word of mouth thing and I think people in my circle and the community holds me accountable in a sense, because they expect me to share that information.
Okay. That's good. I like that. Okay. So last question.
Okay.
We talked about investment property for generational wealth, and then we also talked about, and this is in another conversation, about when to put your property in the LLC. So how do you see an investment property being for generational wealth? What do you recommend that people do if that's the intention with an investment property? What do you think they should do?
Well, I think it depends early on when you buy the property or properties. Because for me, it was a little different. But if that's going to be your business or you're going to have plenty of properties, I would say early on, put in the LLC. And I think here in Georgia, I think once you either have 5 or 7 properties, it makes sense because your exposure is so much, your liability. So I would say that's when you determine if you need an LLC, when you look at the liability exposure. and if you have multifamily units, which I do. So that can potentially expose you to a huge amount of liability.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's where the bulk of your passive income will come from, I would say early on, go ahead and establish LLC. But if you just have 1 or 2 properties, that may not be necessary.
Okay. Do you have, so your properties are in your business. So have you done, or are you planning to do succession planning for your business in order to make sure that that passes on?
I guess I should practice what I preach. I plan on it, and I have 1 daughter, and yes, we've talked about that. And right now she's in college, so I'm trying to figure out and get in her head how involved she wants to be or will be, and I can trust her with that. So I'm not quite sure if it'll just pass transition or better word, transfer directly to her, or maybe a trust. I'm not quite sure at this point. And I feel like I have time on my side. So I'm guilty of that too. You putting things off and procrastinating. I'm guilty of it. I will admit that. But so giving advice, that should be something you're talking to your accountant about. Early on, I would say take the advice of your accountant. So I guess I'm preaching and talking to myself, right? But I would say yes, early on, take care of that.
Awesome, awesome. So is there anything that you would like to leave, any tidbit that you would like to share with our listeners before we go? Any advice for entrepreneurs, or we can even go CPAs, people that are looking to go into the field? Any advice?
Well, I could go on so many different those little tidbits on each one of those topics, but being a CPA or going down that road, if you have any interest in it, if that's something you thought about, inkling, pursue it. It will reward you. I know we didn't get into what it takes, but it is a sacrifice, but I will say it will pay off exponentially. It pays dividends if that's the career path you want for yourself. Or if you're in accounting, go all the way. Don't stop. Don't just be a staff accountant. Don't be over there crunching numbers and working hard. You may as well get the paycheck too. You potential earnings with it. So, because it will pay off. And being an entrepreneur, advice, keep your personal and business income and expenses separate. That's probably all I can say or the most I can say about that is keep good records and keep it separate. So that may translate to good records, but if you keep it separate, you will be safe. Keep everything separate, and that will benefit you to keeping where you can look at where your revenue is and your expenses. So that means have a separate bank account. That's what I mean by that. Keep it separate. Just open up a separate bank account. That makes it much easier. So, and then to believe in yourself, whatever it is you want out of this life, go get it.
Yeah.
You only get one. So whatever it is you want, and take advantage of. I know it's pandemic right now here in November 2020, but this too shall pass. So when you look back over this time, how did you grow? Because to be honest, I think more people or whatever the higher power wanted out of this, a lot of people have slowed down. No matter what your lifestyle is, background is, things have slowed down. So take this moment to analyze what's going on, introspective, and see what it is you can do to achieve your dreams and goals. Take advantage of this. And I'll leave you with that.
Awesome, awesome. All of it was awesome. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I say Jacqueline.
Jackie.
Jackie. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you guys have learned something. I will leave Jackie's contact information below. Somehow I'll add it to either the end of the podcast, or on the YouTube. But your website, Jackie, if you just, the JLA Professionals website, WealthCrate, can you just?
WealthCrate.us.
WealthCrate.us. Is it all one word?
Yep, all one word. WealthCrate. Crate, like a crate. That's what, you didn't ask me about that, but the idea was a crate. We hoard things, people box up stuff, and that's where that came from. Your wealth, boxing it up, you keep it in. So you obtained it, now maintain it and keep it, because most people got a bunch of crates or boxes in their basement or garage. That's where they came from.
Awesome. WealthCrate.us, Jackie Anderson, and she is also the host of the Black CPA Lady on YouTube. So look her up. All right. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.